Now once we have done the Postgresql compile, now we need to move to the third slide, which is a continuation of step number 4, which is the making some changes on the PGHPA file, which is the user authentication file. Now we need to enter to this file, open this file. Again, in my case, it resides in this directory. You need to find out where this file resides in your installation. Now this file will control who have the right to connect to the master server. So this file resides on the master server, and we need to make sure who have the right, which user have the right to connect to this master server. Now there are two cases: either your master and your replica server are in a one local network, or they are in a remote networks. If your master and replica both on local network, you just go to open that file under this replication privileges, add this line of code. Now this name, the replica user, you can change it whichever name you wish to give to your replica user, whichever name you wish. In my case, I selected replica user, and here this is the authentication between the connection. Because it's in a local network, you can select peer, which will be enough. This in case your master and replica on the local network. But if your master and replica on the remote networks, then you need to make authentication for the connection. You need to secure the connection using the hosts and then replication, and then this is the replica user name, and this is the IP addresses of the connection. Keep it as it is. If you are using IPv4, then keep it as this, so it can accept any IP on from anywhere, any TCP, remote TCP IP. And this is the scram SHA, which is the password, encryption. And this is the most important thing, which is the certificate, client cert equal 1. This is the request of authentication from the server to the client. Now all this line you can find in my I have one course by the name of SSL certificates. At the end of that course there is 2 videos which explains to you how you can configure this thing, how you can configure these things, what is the authentication of the SSL connection between the 2 remote servers. So that course, the SSL certificate, you can find how you can do this step. Now once you have finished the Postgres HBA configuration file and you have set it up, then we need to move to step number 5. Now remember we said that any user who wish to connect, it should have 2 things. It should have a replication permission and should have a login permission. Now when you create a user on a replica server, you must give this role, this user, these 2 permissions. So now on the replica server we will enter as a Postgres, and then we will create a user by the name of replica user, which we have replica user, it's replic, I missed the A. Give it a name for the user with replication, login. These are the most important thing, most important permission for this user to connect to the master. Encrypted password, give it some password, and that's it. You are good to go. Now your replica server have a user which have the right to connect to the master. Now if you already have a user and it doesn't have these 2 permissions, then you can just alter user, replica user with replication login. Now once you have done this step, then you can restart both again, your master and your replica. Now we move to step number 6. Now on step number 6, which, as I told you again, I remind you again, it should be done at the beginning with step number 4. Now we need to stop the server, the replica server. First of all, we stop it. We go to the postgresql.com file and pg_hpi file in this replica server. We make the step number 4, same as we have done with the master, except that we don't create a user. But everything else we have done in step number 4 on the master server, we will do it again in the replica server for the two files, postgresql.conf and pg_hpa.com file. Once you have done this, now it's very important, when you first installed the PostgreSQL databases in your replica server, the first time you installed it, in that cluster there is some data. You need to wipe out, you need to delete, you need to empty that cluster from any data prior to start the replication process. Because if you don't wipe out any data, if you don't empty this cluster, the replica cluster, from the data, you will get an error at the time of the replication. So don't forget this important step. And the steps are very easy. You just enter as a Postgres, and then you remove. This is for the folder, this is for the file, and wherever it is the directory of the replica, you just empty it, all of it. And actually you should empty the folders which is in that directory, not all the directory. There is a good now once you have done this step, we need to move the finale, the process of the streaming of the data from the master to the replica. And you can do that with this. You can read this link actually, which can give you a good insight about the PG base backup. This is the main command which will do the replication of the data from the master to the replica. You could have a good insight about all this and all the switches that you can use in here. Okay. So on the replica you will use PG base backup. Where is the directory you want to save the data that coming from the master, which is here. This is the directory on the replica that I want to save all the data that coming from the master. This is the username which we have created on the replica, and this is the name of the host. Remember, we are connecting remotely, so we need to give a name of the host. Now the host name also I will show you later how you can use it, whether you use a host name or use an IP address. So we will talk about it also later. This is the port of the host, which is 5432 obviously, and this is the progress, and this is the password. When you connect to the host, you should give the password of the host so you can be authenticated and connect to the master. This is the entire process of the replication. Once you have done this, the replication process will start over and the data will be transferred. The data will be streamed from the master to the replica.